Welcome to my little piece of paradise. It's hard to believe. It's April 1st, and it's such a nice day. The frogs are singing and just littering the pond today. It reminds me of why I love it out here so much and why I spend so much time. Sometimes I like to just come out and sit and watch the wildlife, the trees, and nature just doing what it does. Seeing its ecosystem is amazing. Soon, there'll be little tadpoles swimming all around, the fish popping up to the surface. Spring is in the air here. It's hard to believe just last week we had snow on the ground. Seeing all this wildlife up and moving reminds me of one thing. It's time to get the sawmill out and running for the year. The first step in the process, after uncovering it, of course, is getting the jacks leveled out and the sawmill nice and straight. So what I do for this is I get out the laser and adjust all the jacks so that my tape measure reads 1.25 inches, what the laser sits above the bunks. Winter's taken its course. With all the freezing and thawing, it's moved the jacks all around and the sawmill is settled. And now that it's all leveled up, it's time to add some fresh fuel. At the beginning of winter, with my outdoor power equipment, I always run it out of gas, so the gas can't gum up in the carburetor. One other thing I'll add here is that I always run recreational gas, as it's called at the gas station here, which is a non-ethanol gas, in all my outdoor power equipment and sawmill. So it's time to tension the blade. At the beginning of every session, I tension the blade to approximately 22 pounds. Seems to work pretty good for me. And then at the end, I detension it. And this is where the fun begins. We're going to start off with this pile of red oak that I cut early in the winter this year. You can see some of it is split in half. That's because when it fell, the tension on the tree just split these logs in half as they impacted the ground. You'll notice me backing up and hitting the brakes and pulling forward and hitting the brakes. This is because this log is almost too much for my tractor to handle with the hydraulics. Every time I hit the brakes, I found that it takes the weight off just enough for the hydraulics to lift. And after it's lifted up in the air, I can safely transport it to the mill. One thing I'll add at this point is a lot of people wonder what size mill they should get. Should they get a bigger one? Should they get a smaller one? And my answer is normally, get the mill that fits the equipment that you have to load it. You can't lift any bigger than what your equipment will handle. So for this example, I've got a Woodland Mills 126. It cuts up to a 26-inch log, which I've maxed out on several occasions. But to get the next bigger mill wouldn't have done me any good, because I don't have the equipment that would load a 30-inch log. Now it's time to make the first cut of the season. Got it adjusted the height. It's time to get it started up. Man, I'm just praying that it starts easy at this point. Ah, the first slab of the season. And it just reminds me of how much I love the smell of fresh sawdust. You'll see at the end of the second cut, my guide was hitting the edge of the log. This was totally preventable. As you can see, my stops, the one's way low. If I would have raised it up a little bit, the log would have been within the tracks. But being that I was in a hurry, we got to go to plan B. And as you can see here, it wasn't much I had to cut off to get it in. Little planning on my part, and this would have totally been avoidable. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how people can handle these logs without equipment. It's a pain sometimes with the forks of my tractor to get these logs turned. So with that being said, what I found to be the easiest is to lift the log with the tractor, back it up a little bit, and then use my cant hook to turn it for the next cut. So now that I got it almost where I want it, I'm going to raise this log stop a little bit to help keep my log square. So when I make the next cut, it's at 90 degrees to the first. At this point, I tighten up the log to the log stops and hook the log dogs up to keep it snug. Now it's just about time to make the second set of passes. I'll measure my tall side of my log so I can adjust my blade accordingly. But man, that wind is really starting to pick up. The winds have really picked up now, and the sky is turning black. It's time to shut off the mill, secure the rails so it can't slide around, and put it to sleep for the storm. It's amazing how such a beautiful morning has turned into such a stormy afternoon. But I guess being April 1st, April Fool's Day, Mother Nature had its own joke to play on me. There you have it. But life's what you make of it. And this is the way I choose to remember that April 1st day. With the pond just littered with frogs. The sounds of nature. You can't get any better than this. Thanks for joining me on my journey. I hope you like it, you subscribe, you tell your friends. Till next time.